The last transmission from Outpost Delta had been brief. 20 seconds of static-laden horror as the alien dreadnought tore through their orbital defenses like tissue paper. Commander Celine Ward replayed it for the fourth time, her face illuminated by the cold blue light of the tactical display aboard HMS Perseverance. She paused on the final frame, the outpost commander's face contorted in terror before dissolving into static. "That's the 17th colony world in 3 months," Lieutenant Kira Yamamoto said quietly, standing at rigid attention beside Ward's command chair. "Aurora 7 is next in their path." Ward nodded, studying the galaxy map where red markers indicated fallen worlds. The pattern was methodical, relentless. The alien armada, the Scourge, as survivors called them, had broken every defensive fleet they'd encountered. And now, the Perseverance floated alone in the military graveyard orbiting Shatterpoint, the last operational human warship, decommissioned 2 years earlier and scheduled for scrapping. It was little more than a forgotten relic. "How many still aboard?" Ward asked, already knowing the answer was far too few. 43 crew members, Commander. Mostly engineering staff who were stripping her for parts when the evacuation order came through. Yamamoto's voice was flat, professional, masking the desperation they both felt. Ward rose from her chair, moving to the viewport. The stars looked the same as always, cold, distant, indifferent to the extinction-level threat advancing through human space. She'd lost her previous command, the dreadnought Invictus, at the Battle of Proxima Centauri. 2,000 crew members. Her fault. Her failure. "Commander," Yamamoto interrupted her thoughts. "Incoming transmission. It's weak, but it's coming from Aurora 7. Ward turned sharply. "Put it through!" The holographic display flickered, revealing the dust-streaked face of a middle-aged woman in mining coveralls. "This is Director Alara Santos of Aurora 7 Mining Collective. We're detecting multiple Scourge signatures entering our system. Civilian evacuation is underway, but we're running out of time. Our defense grid can't hold them. If anyone receives this, please." The message degraded into bursts of interference. "Can we establish two-way communication?" Ward asked. Yamamoto worked the console. "Negative. It's a repeating distress beacon. They must be running automated systems." Ward stared at the frozen image of Director Santos, then at the tactical display showing the Perseverance's diminished capabilities. One frigate against an armada that had crushed entire battle groups. It was suicide. But Aurora 7 was a critical mining colony. 8,000 civilians plus the largest deuterium processing facility in the sector. If it fell, the remaining human worlds would lose their primary fuel source for interstellar travel. "Lieutenant, gather all personnel in the hangar bay in 30 minutes, Ward said. Decision made. "Commander?" Ward's eyes hardened with resolve. "We're recommissioning this ship, effective immediately. With 43 crew, the Perseverance requires a minimum complement of 200. Then we'll make do with what we have." Ward straightened her uniform jacket. "Aurora 7 needs us, Lieutenant, and we're the only ship left to answer." Yamamoto hesitated before nodding. "Yes, Commander." As Yamamoto departed, Ward remained at the viewport, her reflection ghostly against the stars. She'd failed once before. The weight of those 2,000 souls still haunted her dreams. She couldn't fail again. The hangar bay was cavernous, designed to house shuttlecraft and fighters that had long since been transferred to other vessels. Now, it echoed with the footsteps of 43 people, engineers, mechanics, and a handful of junior officers who had been supervising the decommissioning. Ward stood before them, back straight, voice projecting to fill the space. 3 hours ago, Aurora 7 sent out a distress call. The Scourge is moving into their system. By now, they may already be under attack. She paused, looking at each face. "I won't lie to you. High Command has written off Aurora 7 as indefensible. No reinforcements are coming. Murmurs rippled through the small crowd. But I refuse to abandon 8,000 civilians to slaughter. Ward continued. The Perseverance may be old. She may be undermanned. But she's all those people have. Chief Engineer Raul Ortega stepped forward, his weathered face skeptical. Commander, with respect, this ship is half-gutted. Life support is running at 60%. The primary weapons grid is offline. We'd be flying into a massacre. Then we'd better get to work, Chief. Ward replied without hesitation. Because we launch in 6 hours. Ortega's eyebrows shot up. 6 hours? It would take 3 weeks in space dock to make this vessel combat-ready. We don't have 3 weeks. We have 6 hours. Ward's voice softened slightly. I know what I'm asking. Anyone who wants to leave can take the remaining shuttle to Shatterpoint Station. No repercussions. No questions asked. Silence fell over the hangar. Ward waited, counting heartbeats, wondering if she'd be left standing alone. Finally, a young engineer, barely out of the academy by the look of him, stepped forward. Ensign Jax Merrick, Propulsion Systems. Commander, I'm with you. Like a dam breaking. Others moved forward. Not everyone. 7 crew members edged toward the shuttle bay. But enough. Enough to try. Chief Ortega. Ward addressed the engineer, who remained rooted in place. His expression conflicted. Can you get us operational in 6 hours? Ortega ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. Not by any regulation standard, Commander. Then a slow, determined smile spread across his face. But regulations went out the airlock when the Scourge arrived. We'll get you something that flies and fights. Ward nodded. That's all I ask. Lieutenant Yamamoto will organize you into teams. Focus on propulsion, weapons, and shields, in that order. We need to move fast and hit hard. As the crew dispersed, energized despite the impossible odds, Yamamoto approached. We're still critically undermanned, Commander. Even with everyone working double shifts. We'll need people on tactical systems, navigation, medical. We'll cross-train. Everyone pulls double duty. Ward checked the time. 5 hours and 53 minutes. Lieutenant, let's make them count. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Ward moved throughout the ship, assisting where she could, evaluating systems, and making brutal triage decisions about what could be repaired and what would have to be abandoned. In engineering, Ortega performed miracles with limited resources, cannibalizing non-essential systems to restore power to weapons and engines. The remaining crew worked with grim determination, their faces streaked with sweat and mechanical fluid. 4 hours in, Ward found herself in the ship's armory with Ensign Merrick, inventorying their meager supply of small arms and tactical gear. Ever been in combat, Ensign? She asked, checking the charge on a pulse rifle. Marek shook his head. No, Commander. I was still in final year at the Academy when the Scourge hit Proxima Centauri. They fast-tracked our graduation after that, assigned most of us to evacuation duties. Ward nodded, remembering the chaos after Proxima. Why did you stay, when I offered the shuttle? Marek paused in his work, considering the question. My family was on Titan Colony when it fell. No evacuations, no survivors. His young face hardened. Running and hiding hasn't worked for humanity so far. Maybe it's time someone stood and fought instead. Ward studied him, the determination in his eyes, balanced against his obvious inexperience. There's a difference between bravery and recklessness. Ensign, I need to know you'll follow orders, even if those orders are to retreat. With respect, Commander, are we planning to retreat? The question hung in the air between them. Ward had asked herself the same thing repeatedly over the past hours. The mission parameters were unclear even to her. Rescue as many civilians as possible. Certainly. But beyond that. Our priority is civilian evacuation, she said finally. Everything else is secondary. Marek seemed to accept this, returning to his inventory. After a moment, he asked, "Is it true you commanded the Invictus at Proxima?" Ward's hands stilled. "Yes." "They say you held the line for 13 hours while the civilian transports escaped, saved over 20,000 lives, and lost 2,000 of my crew," Ward replied, her voice tight. She set down the rifle with deliberate care. "Remember that part of the story too, Ensign. Every heroic last stand comes with a cost." Before Merrick could respond, Yamamoto's voice came over the comm system. "Commander to the bridge. Urgent." Ward left Merrick to finish the inventory and made her way to the command deck. The bridge was a hive of activity, with crew members working frantically to restore systems. Makeshift repairs were evident everywhere. Exposed wiring, jury-rigged consoles, temporary power couplings. "Status?" Ward asked as she entered. Yamamoto gestured to the main display. "We've received updated telemetry from Aurora 7. The Scourge fleet has established a blockade. They're deploying surface-to-orbit cannons around the main settlement." Ward studied the tactical overlay. 3 Scourge destroyers and 1 massive dreadnought. The same configuration that had decimated Proxima's defenses. The alien vessels were sleek, asymmetrical constructs of black metal and pulsing energy fields. Beautiful in their deadly efficiency. "Civilian evacuation?" Ward asked. "Partial success. About 2,000 made it out before the blockade closed. The rest are trapped, taking shelter in the mining tunnels beneath the colony." Ward's mind raced through options, each more desperate than the last. "What about Aurora 7's defense grid?" "Minimal. Automated turrets and a handful of ground-to-space missiles. They're a mining colony, not a fortress." "And us?" Yamamoto hesitated. "Chief Ortega reports main engines at 70% capacity. Forward shields at 40%. Aft shields negligible. Primary weapons array is operational but unstable. We have 2 torpedo tubes working, with a total of 7 high-yield torpedoes. Not enough. Not nearly enough against a Scourge blockade. But it was all they had." "Time to launch?" 30 minutes, Commander, but we're not ready," Ward finished. "We won't ever be ready, Lieutenant. Not with the resources we have." She straightened her shoulders. "Set course for Aurora 7. Maximum sustainable speed." "Yes, Commander." Yamamoto turned to relay the orders, then paused. "What's our strategy, if I may ask?" Ward studied the enemy formation once more. "We can't match their firepower, or their numbers. But we might create enough of a diversion to punch a hole in their blockade. Give more civilians a chance to escape." The unspoken part of that plan hung in the air between them. The Perseverance likely wouldn't survive such an engagement. Yamamoto nodded in understanding and turned to the navigation console. Ward took her place in the command chair, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over her. "Shipwide address, Lieutenant." When the channel opened, Ward spoke clearly and with conviction. "All hands, this is Commander Ward. In 28 minutes, we launch for Aurora 7 to engage a Scourge blockade. Our mission is to create an opening for civilian evacuations. The odds are against us, but the people of Aurora 7 have no one else." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "I've seen what the Scourge can do. I know the cost of facing them, but I've also seen what happens when we don't fight back. Today, we make a stand, not because we're certain of victory, but because some things are worth fighting for even when victory seems impossible." Throughout the ship, crew members paused in their work, listening. For those we've lost, for those we might yet save, for humanity's future, Perseverance out. As the transmission ended, Ward turned to find Ortega standing at the entrance to the bridge, his expression unreadable. "That was quite the speech, Commander," he said, stepping forward. "Very inspiring. But inspiration won't hold this ship together when those alien bastards start firing." "Then what will, Chief?" Ortega grinned, wiping greasy hands on his already stained uniform. "Duct tape, prayers, and my engineering team's stubborn refusal to die. We've got the primary reactor stable and rerouted power from non-essential systems. She won't win any beauty contests, but she'll fly and she'll fight." Ward felt the first flicker of hope since receiving the distress call. "Good work, Chief. There's something else." Ortega lowered his voice. "I found a sealed weapons locker in the secondary cargo hold. Experimental tech that was being transported when the decommissioning order came through. EMP charges, gravity disruptors, nasty stuff. Not standard issue." "Is it operational?" "Theoretically, but it's untested in combat conditions." Ward considered this new information. "Can you integrate any of it into our weapon systems?" Ortega scratched his beard. "Maybe. The gravity disruptors would pair well with our torpedo delivery system, but they're unstable. Might fry our own systems in the process." "Keep it as a backup option," Ward decided. "If things get desperate—" "They're already desperate, Commander," Ortega replied grimly. Ward couldn't argue with that assessment. 23 minutes to launch. Chief, make them count." As Ortega left, Ward turned her attention back to the tactical display, studying the Scourge blockade configuration. There had to be a weakness, an angle of approach they hadn't considered. The fate of 6,000 civilians and her 43 crew members depended on finding it. The Perseverance disengaged from Shatterpoint's orbit, with a shudder that rattled through the hull, testament to the hasty repairs and jury-rigged systems, keeping her operational. On the bridge, Ward monitored the ship's status as they accelerated toward the jump point that would take them to Aurora 7. "FTL drive charging," Yamamoto reported from the operations console. 87% and rising." Ward nodded, feeling the subtle vibration through the deck plates increase as the ancient engines strained toward faster-than-light capability. Around her, the skeleton crew worked with focused intensity, many handling systems they'd never been trained for. "Jump capacity in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jump initiated." The view screen flared as space-time folded around the Perseverance, propelling them through the dimensional shortcut toward Aurora 7. The ship groaned under the strain, alerts flashing across multiple consoles. "Power fluctuation in the aft section," called out a young officer who'd been pressed into service at the engineering station. "Compensating." "Keep it stable," Ward ordered. "Time to Aurora 7? 4 hours, 17 minutes at current velocity." Yamamoto replied. "But Commander, at this power consumption rate, we'll arrive with barely 40% reserves for combat operations." Ward frowned. Another impossible choice: conserve power and arrive too late, or maintain speed and arrive with depleted resources. "Maintain speed," she decided. "We'll worry about combat capability when we get there." The 4-hour journey passed in tense preparation. Ward used the time to brief the improvised tactical team on engagement protocols and review what little intelligence they had on Scourge combat patterns. Meanwhile, Ortega and his engineers continued their frantic work to squeeze every bit of performance from the ship's aging systems. As they approached Aurora 7's system, Ward called the senior staff to the bridge for a final briefing. Yamamoto, Ortega, and Ensign Merrick gathered around the tactical display. "Latest scans confirm the Scourge have tightened their blockade," Ward began, indicating the orbital positions of the alien vessels. "They've established a perimeter around the main settlement and deployed ground forces." "Why haven't they just glassed the planet?" Merrick asked. "That's their usual approach." "Resources," Yamamoto answered. "Aurora 7 has the richest deuterium deposits in the sector. They want to capture it intact." "Which gives us an advantage," Ward continued. "They're being careful, methodical. We can use that against them." She manipulated the display, highlighting a section of the blockade. "There's a gap here, between their dreadnought and the smallest destroyer. If we time our approach with Aurora 7's lunar transit, we might slip through their sensor net." Ortega studied the projection. "And once we're through, we make contact with the ground forces. coordinate evacuation of the remaining civilians, and provide orbital support. Ward's tone made it clear she understood how desperate the plan sounded. With what ships? Merrick asked. Most civilian vessels would have fled during the initial evacuation. Director Santos mentioned mining shuttles in her transmission, Yamamoto said. They're not FTL capable, but they could reach Perseverance in orbit. Ward nodded. We'll need to create and hold a corridor for those shuttles. She turned to Ortega. Chief, what's the status on those experimental weapons you found? I've modified 2 torpedoes with gravity disruptor payloads, Ortega replied. In theory, they'll create localized gravitational anomalies, could disable Scourge shields long enough for conventional weapons to penetrate. But they're unstable as hell. I wouldn't fire them unless we have no other choice. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Ward said, though her expression suggested she knew better. We drop out of FTL in 20 minutes. All hands to battle stations. As the others moved to their positions, Yamamoto lingered. Commander, I feel compelled to point out that even if we succeed in evacuating the civilians, our chances of escaping the Scourge blockade afterward are minimal. Ward met her gaze steadily. I'm aware, Lieutenant. The crew should know this is likely a one-way mission. They already do, Ward replied softly. They've known since they chose to stay at Shatterpoint. But sometimes, Lieutenant, the only way to win is to change the nature of the game. She gestured toward their stations. Let's give these people a fighting chance. The Perseverance dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Aurora 7 system, immediately powering down non-essential systems to minimize their sensor profile. Through the view screen, the mining world loomed, a rugged, rust-colored planet, scarred by massive excavation sites. In orbit, the Scourge vessels maintained their blockade. Their alien geometry, a stark contrast to the functional human architecture of the colony below. Passive scans only, Ward ordered. Let's see what we're dealing with. Yamamoto worked her console, interpreting the incoming data, confirming 3 Scourge destroyers and 1 dreadnought in high orbit. Ground forces deployed around the main settlement. Energy signatures indicate they're setting up excavation equipment. They're not waiting to secure the planet before beginning resource extraction, Ward noted. Efficient. She studied the tactical display. What about the colonists? I'm detecting human life signs concentrated in the southern mining complex. Approximately 5,000 signatures. They appear to have retreated into the deeper tunnels. Ward nodded. The mine tunnels would provide temporary protection, but the Scourge would find them eventually. Communications? All official channels are being jammed, Merrick reported from the communication station. But I'm picking up scattered transmissions on older frequency bands. Mining equipment emergency channels? They're coordinating down there. Can you establish contact without alerting the Scourge? Marik's fingers flew across his console. Possibly. If I piggyback our signal on the maintenance telemetry from their automated mining equipment. There. Channel open. Tight beam transmission. This is Commander Celine Ward of HMS Perseverance to Aurora 7 survivors. Do you copy? Seconds stretched into a full minute before a response crackled through. Heavy with static, but understandable. This is Director Santos. We copy. Thank God someone received our beacon. The relief in her voice was palpable. But, 1 ship? Is that all that's coming? Ward exchanged glances with Yamamoto before responding. For now, yes. We're here to assist with evacuation. What's your status? We have approximately 5,000 people sheltering in the deep mining complexes. The Scourge have taken the spaceport and main settlement. They're systematically working through the outer tunnels. Santos's voice tightened. We've lost contact with nearly 1,000 people in the northern complex. We don't know if they're dead or just cut off. Do you have any operational vessels? 7 mining shuttles hidden in maintenance bays throughout the complex. They can carry about 100 people each. But the Scourge blockade? Let us worry about the blockade, Ward said with more confidence than she felt. Can you get your people to those shuttles within 2 hours? A pause. Yes. But Commander, even if we launch, where would we go? The shuttles aren't FTL capable. We'll rendezvous in orbit and evacuate as many as we can aboard Perseverance. The rest will need to hide in Aurora 7's asteroid belt until rescue arrives. Another, longer pause. Understood. We'll begin moving people immediately. Santos out. As the transmission ended, Ward turned to her bridge crew. We have 2 hours to create an evacuation corridor through that blockade. How exactly do we do that, Commander? Ortega asked, not bothering to hide his skepticism. Even at full capacity, we'd be outgunned. In our current state, we use what they don't expect, Ward replied. Our lunar approach plan gets us close. Then we target the smallest destroyer with everything we have. Conventional torpedoes, point defense cannons, everything. We create a gap and hold it open long enough for those shuttles to escape. And the gravity disruptors, Ortega pressed. Ward's expression hardened. We save those for the dreadnought. If it moves to close the gap, one torpedo should be enough to temporarily disable its primary systems. And the second torpedo? Yamamoto asked quietly. Ward met her gaze. Insurance. In case we need to make a more dramatic exit. The implication was clear. A suicide run was on the table if necessary. No one spoke for a moment. The weight of what they were contemplating settling over the bridge. 1 hour, 48 minutes until the lunar transit gives us cover. Merrick finally reported. Scourge patrol patterns are predictable. They're not expecting resistance. Then let's use that against them, Ward said. Prepare for silent running approach. All hands to battle stations. As the crew dispersed to their positions, Ward remained at the tactical display, studying the Scourge formations and running scenarios in her mind. Each ended with the same conclusion. The Perseverance was unlikely to survive this encounter. But if they could save even a fraction of Aurora 7's population, it would be worth the sacrifice. She thought of the faces of her small crew, Ortega's weathered determination, Yamamoto's quiet competence, Merrick's youthful courage. None had hesitated when faced with this suicide mission. They deserved better than a desperate last stand. But sometimes, a desperate stand was all that remained. The approach to Aurora 7 was nerve-wracking in its silence. The Perseverance drifted with minimal power, using the planet's large moon as cover while they closed the distance to the blockade. On the bridge, the crew maintained tense silence, acutely aware that detection would mean immediate engagement on the Scourge's terms. Lunar transit in 3 minutes, Yamamoto reported softly. Scourge patrol maintaining standard pattern. Ward nodded, her attention fixed on the tactical display. Weapon status. Main cannon charged. Torpedoes armed. Point defense grid online. Merrick responded. All weapon systems showing green, though Chief Ortega warns the main cannon capacitors may not sustain more than 4 consecutive firings. We'll make them count, Ward said. She opened a shipwide channel. All hands. Prepare for combat maneuvers. Engineering. Stand by for emergency power to shields and weapons on my mark. Tension built as the seconds ticked down. The moon's bulk slid across their field of view, momentarily blocking the Perseverance from the Scourge sensors. Now, Ward commanded. Full power to engines. Set intercept course with target Alpha. The ship surged forward, shedding its stealth approach for raw speed. Alerts flashed across the tactical display as Scourge sensors detected their presence. They've spotted us, Yamamoto reported. Enemy vessels altering course to intercept. Time to weapons range. 30 seconds. Ward keyed the shipwide comm again. All hands, brace for impact. Return fire at will once weapons are in range. The Scourge responded with predictable efficiency. The nearest destroyer, their primary target, pivoted with unnatural grace, bringing its forward batteries to bear on the approaching human vessel. Enemy weapons charging, Merrick called out. Impact in 10 seconds. Evasive pattern Delta, Ward ordered. Prepare to fire main cannon on my mark. The Perseverance banked sharply, narrowly avoiding the first salvo of alien energy weapons. Brilliant blue-white beams cut through the space they had occupied moments before, the near miss causing electromagnetic interference across the bridge systems. "Returning fire," Yamamoto announced, her fingers dancing across the weapons console. The ship shuddered as the main cannon discharged, sending a concentrated beam of energy toward the Scourge destroyer. The shot struck true, impacting against the alien vessel's shields in a spectacular display of cascading energy. For a moment, it seemed the shields might collapse. Then, they stabilized, absorbing the attack. "Minimal damage to target," Yamamoto reported grimly. "Their shields are adapting to our weapon frequency." "Modulate and fire again," Ward commanded. "Helm, bring us in closer. I want torpedo range." The Perseverance drove forward, engines straining as they closed the distance. The destroyer fired again, this time scoring a glancing hit against their port shields. "Port shields down to 23%, Merrick called out, as the ship rocked from the impact. "Minor hull breach on Deck 4. Emergency teams responding." Ward gripped the arms of her command chair. "Return fire! All batteries!" The Perseverance unleashed everything it had: main cannon, secondary batteries, and a conventional torpedo that streaked toward the destroyer. The combined assault hammered the alien vessel, finally penetrating its shields at multiple points. "Direct hits," Yamamoto reported, a note of triumph in her voice. "Enemy shields failing. Hull breaches detected." "Press the advantage," Ward ordered. "Helm, bring us to point-blank range. Prepare to fire second torpedo spread." As they closed on the wounded destroyer, alarms blared across the bridge. "Commander, the dreadnought is moving to intercept," Merrick warned. "Multiple weapon signatures activating." Ward had expected this, the moment they showed themselves to be a genuine threat. The Scourge command ship would respond. "Time to intercept?" 90 seconds. Not enough time to finish the destroyer and escape. Ward made her decision. "Chief Ortega, prepare the first gravity disruptor torpedo. Target the dreadnought." Ortega's voice came over the comm, tense but steady. "Disruptor armed and loaded. I should warn you, Commander, this close to the destroyer, we'll be caught in the peripheral effects." "Understood. All hands, secure for extreme gravitational distortion." Ward turned to Yamamoto. "Fire when ready." The modified torpedo launched, its trajectory taking it directly toward the approaching dreadnought. The massive alien vessel, sensing a threat, attempted to shoot it down with point defense systems. But the torpedo's erratic course, a side effect of the unstable gravity technology, made it difficult to target. "Impact in 5 seconds," Yamamoto counted down. 4, 3, 2, 1. The torpedo detonated short of the dreadnought's hull, but the effect was immediate and dramatic. A sphere of distorted space-time bloomed between the vessels, warping light and matter alike. The dreadnought's forward section seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously as localized gravity fluctuations tore at its structure. Aboard the Perseverance, the effects were less severe, but still disorienting. Crew members held onto their stations as gravity shifted unpredictably. Equipment tore free from moorings, and warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. "Dreadnought's shields are offline," Merrick reported, fighting nausea as gravity normalized. "Primary weapon systems non-responsive. They're dead in space, temporarily." "And the destroyer?" Ward asked, wiping blood from a cut on her forehead where she'd struck the console during the distortion. "Heavily damaged but operational. They're retreating to a defensive position." Ward assessed the tactical situation rapidly. They'd created the gap they needed in the blockade, but it wouldn't last long. The other Scourge vessels were already moving to compensate. "Open a channel to Director Santos," she ordered. "Tell her to launch the shuttles now. We'll hold this position as long as we can." While Merrick transmitted the urgent message, Ward turned to Yamamoto. "Status report. Main cannon capacitors drained. Torpedo tubes 1 and 3 operational. Tube 2 damaged in the gravitational distortion. Shields at 35% overall. We have multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 6. Engineering reports the FTL drive is offline. Not good, but they were still in the fight. Divert power from the FTL drive to weapons and shields. We're not going anywhere until those shuttles are clear. The next 20 minutes unfolded in a desperate holding action. The Perseverance maintained position at the gap in the blockade, exchanging fire with the remaining Scourge destroyers that probed their defenses. The damaged dreadnought was slowly recovering, its systems gradually coming back online as it drifted away from the gravity distortion's epicenter. First shuttles launching, Merrick announced, monitoring communications from the surface. 7 vessels, approximately 700 civilians total. Ward felt a surge of hope. Guide them through the gap. Helm, position us between the shuttles and the nearest destroyer. We'll provide cover. The Perseverance swung into a protective stance, absorbing fire meant for the vulnerable civilian craft. With each impact, the ship's already strained systems deteriorated further. Shuttle 1 through the gap, Yamamoto reported, tracking the evacuees. Shuttles 2 and 3 following. A massive energy surge from the dreadnought caught everyone's attention. Commander, the dreadnought's primary weapon is powering up, Merrick warned. They're targeting the shuttles. Ward had anticipated this moment, when the Scourge commander would decide to sacrifice Aurora 7's resources, rather than allow the humans to escape. There was only one option left. Chief Ortega, prepare the second gravity disruptor, she ordered. Target the dreadnought's main weapon array. Commander, Ortega's voice was grave. The second disruptor is even more unstable than the first. At this range, detonating it could tear Perseverance apart. Understood. Evacuate engineering and seal the section. Ward's decision was made. Lieutenant Yamamoto, you have the bridge. Continue escort operations for the civilian shuttles. Yamamoto looked up sharply. Commander? I'll handle the torpedo launch personally. Ward rose from her chair. The firing controls need to be manually calibrated to target the dreadnought's weapon specifically. It's a precision shot. Understanding dawned in Yamamoto's eyes. Commander, let me... That's an order, Lieutenant. Ward cut her off firmly. Continue the evacuation mission. That's our priority. Before further objections could be raised, Ward left the bridge, making her way through corridors damaged by enemy fire and gravitational distortion. Emergency lighting flickered, and in some sections, she had to navigate around exposed wiring and structural damage. She reached the torpedo control room, adjacent to the launch tubes, finding it deserted per her evacuation order. The second gravity disruptor torpedo sat in its cradle, the modified warhead pulsing with an unnatural blue light. Ward accessed the control panel, bypassing safety protocols to enable manual targeting. The dreadnought loomed in the targeting display, its massive form gradually recovering from the first disruptor's effects. Energy readings indicated its main planet-killer weapon was nearly charged, capable of destroying not just the shuttles, but Perseverance as well, with a single shot. As she worked, Ortega's voice came over her personal communicator. Commander, I've evacuated engineering, but I'm still reading your life signs in the torpedo control room. The firing sequence can be initiated remotely from the bridge. Not with the precision I need, Ward replied, continuing her calibrations. How are the shuttles progressing? 5 have cleared the blockade. 2 remaining. Ortega paused. Commander, the dreadnought's weapon will fire in approximately 40 seconds. That's all the time I need. Ward finished the targeting sequence, her fingers steady, despite the implications of what she was about to do. The modified torpedo would create a gravitational singularity precisely at the dreadnought's weapon core, theoretically causing a catastrophic overload that would disable or destroy the vessel. But the unstable technology meant the singularity would expand outward before collapsing, catching Perseverance in its effect radius. Chief, I need you to ensure Yamamoto continues the mission, Ward said, her voice calm. The evacuees must reach safety. There's another way, Ortega insisted. Give me 2 minutes to rig a remote detonator. You can launch and then get clear. We don't have 2 minutes. Ward's tone softened. It's been an honor serving with you, Chief. Before Ortega could respond, Ward switched channels. Bridge. Status of the civilian shuttles? Shuttles 6 and 7 clearing the blockade now. Yamamoto reported. Commander, the Dreadnought is locking weapons on the last shuttle. We can't intercept in time. You won't need to, Ward replied. She placed her hand on the launch control. Lieutenant, once the Dreadnought is neutralized, get our people and those civilians to safety. That's a direct order. Commander, Yamamoto began. The Perseverance has lived up to her name today, Ward said. Make sure they remember that. With that, she initiated the launch sequence. The gravity disruptor torpedo shot from its tube, accelerating toward the Dreadnought's charging weapon. Ward watched it go, then sealed the control room door. There would be no escape. But then, she hadn't expected one. On the bridge, the crew watched in stunned silence as the torpedo streaked toward its target. The Dreadnought, detecting the incoming threat, attempted to divert power from its main weapon to defenses. Too late. The torpedo detonated precisely at the focal point of the alien vessel's primary weapon. For a heartbeat, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself appeared to fold inward, creating a swirling vortex that engulfed the Dreadnought's forward section. The gravitational forces tore through the alien ship's structure, ripping armor plating and internal systems apart as the singularity expanded. Alarms blared across the Perseverance as the edge of the effect reached them. Gravitational shear exceeding structural tolerances, Merrick reported, his voice tight. Hull integrity failing on all forward sections. Yamamoto gripped her console. All hands, brace for impact. Emergency bulkheads engaging. The singularity reached its maximum expansion, then began to collapse, pulling the Dreadnought's remnants inward with it. The Perseverance, caught in the peripheral effect, shuddered violently as conflicting gravitational forces threatened to tear it apart. Forward sections gone, Ortega reported from a secondary engineering station. Torpedo control room, destroyed. A moment of silence fell over the bridge as the implications registered. Commander Ward was gone. The singularity collapsed completely, leaving behind a debris field where the Scourge Dreadnought had been. The remaining destroyers, suddenly leaderless, fell into disarray, some retreating, others moving to defensive positions. Lieutenant, Merrick finally spoke, his voice subdued. The civilian shuttles are clear of the blockade, all 7 accounted for. Yamamoto straightened in her chair, feeling the weight of command settle upon her. Status of Perseverance? We've lost 30% of our hull. Life support failing on decks 1 through 4. FTL drive completely offline. Sublight engines at minimal capacity. Ortega's assessment was grim, but delivered with professional detachment. Can we move? Barely. We might manage escape velocity, but not much more. Yamamoto considered their options. 700 civilians saved, but thousands more remained on Aurora 7. The Scourge blockade was temporarily disrupted, but reinforcements would inevitably arrive. Open a channel to Director Santos, she ordered. Santos responded immediately. Lieutenant, where's Commander Ward? Commander Ward gave her life to disable the Dreadnought, Yamamoto replied, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to break through. We've created a temporary gap in their defenses. How many more civilians can you evacuate? We're loading the second wave of shuttles now. Another 700 people. But there are thousands more in the deeper tunnels who won't make it to the launch bays in time. Yamamoto studied the tactical display. The Perseverance was crippled, barely holding together. They couldn't maintain their position indefinitely. Then, Ensign Merrick spoke up. Lieutenant, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the mining facility where the civilians are sheltered. Scourge weapons? No. It's coming from the humans. Some kind of power buildup in the deepest mining section. Merrick worked his console, interpreting the data. It matches the energy signature of our gravity disruptors, but bigger, much bigger. Yamamoto exchanged glances with Ortega. Director Santos, what exactly were you mining on Aurora 7? A pause. Officially, deuterium. Santos's voice lowered. Unofficially, we discovered an alien artifact 3 years ago in the deepest excavation. Research team classified it as a gravity manipulation device, possibly ancient weaponry. We've been studying it under military contract. Is it operational? Yamamoto asked, mind racing with possibilities. Theoretically, we've never activated it at full power. The risks were too great. But now, can you use it against the Scourge? If we overload it, yes. The resulting gravitational pulse could disable or destroy any ship in orbit. Santos's implication was clear. They were considering a last-ditch effort to destroy the blockade entirely. But whoever triggers it won't survive the collapse. Another sacrifice. Yamamoto looked around the bridge at the remaining crew. Exhausted, injured, but still fighting. They'd already lost their commander. How many more lives would this mission claim? Lieutenant, Ortega spoke up. If they're generating a gravity pulse of that magnitude, we need to get the civilian shuttles well clear of the planet. The effect radius could be enormous. Yamamoto nodded. Director Santos, how long do you need to prepare the device? 1 hour. We'll evacuate as many as we can before then. Understood. We'll coordinate with the shuttles already in orbit and prepare for the second wave. Yamamoto paused. And Director, make it count. We will. Santos out. As the communication ended, Yamamoto turned to the bridge crew. You heard the plan. We have 1 hour to get every civilian shuttle as far from Aurora 7 as possible, before that gravity device activates. And Perseverance? Merrick asked quietly. Yamamoto studied the damage report scrolling across her console. Chief Ortega, can we make it to minimum safe distance with our remaining engine power? Ortega's expression was grim. Unlikely. We'd need to strip everything, and I mean everything, for parts to boost the engines enough. Even then. Then we start stripping, Yamamoto decided. Merrick, coordinate with the civilian shuttles. I want them moving in formation toward the system's edge. Maximum sustainable speed. Yes, Lieutenant. For the next hour, the crippled Perseverance directed the evacuation operation, while Ortega and his remaining engineers performed miracles, trying to restore engine function. The second wave of shuttles launched from Aurora 7, carrying another 700 civilians, bringing the total evacuees to approximately 1,400. A fraction of the colony's population, but 1,400 lives that would otherwise have been lost. As the deadline approached, Yamamoto gathered the senior staff for a final assessment. Engine status? She asked Ortega. We've cobbled together enough thrust for 1 sustained burn, the engineer reported. It might get us to minimum safe distance, emphasis on might. The civilian shuttles? All 14 vessels are proceeding to the coordinates we provided, Merrick said. They'll be clear of the effect radius in 10 minutes. Yamamoto nodded. And the gravity device? Director Santos reports final preparations are complete. They're evacuating all non-essential personnel to the deepest shelter. The device will activate on her command. The unspoken reality hung heavy in the air. Thousands of colonists, including Santos herself, would remain behind, sacrificing themselves to destroy the Scourge presence. Commence engine burn, Yamamoto ordered. Get us as far from Aurora 7 as possible. The Perseverance's engines flared to life, pushing the damaged vessel away from the mining world with agonizing slowness. On the main view screen, Aurora 7 receded, its rust-colored surface still beautiful despite the Scourge vessels hovering in orbit. 5 minutes to minimum safe distance, Merrick reported. Director Santos is requesting final communication. Put her through, Yamamoto said. Santos's voice came over the comm, remarkably calm given the circumstances. Lieutenant, our sensors show the Scourge ground forces have breached our outer defenses. They'll reach the central mining complex in minutes. We're moving the evacuees to safety, Yamamoto assured her. Your sacrifice won't be in vain. This isn't just about us, Santos replied. The data we've gathered on Scourge tactics and technology is in the shuttles. Use it. And Lieutenant, the gravity device we found, it wasn't unique. There are references to similar artifacts on other worlds. Find them. Yamamoto's eyes widened at the implication. You're saying there could be more weapons like this? Not just weapons. Tools. Technologies we barely understand. The Scourge knew what we found here. It's why they came. Santos's voice grew urgent. They're at the final door. It's time. Get your people clear. Director, for humanity. Lieutenant, Aurora 7 out. The transmission cut off. Moments later, Merrick's console lit up with warnings. Energy spike detected on the planet's surface. Massive gravitational distortion forming. Maximum thrust, Yamamoto ordered. All power to engines. The Perseverance surged forward, as behind them. Aurora 7 became the epicenter of a phenomenon unlike anything they had witnessed. A visible distortion spread across the planet's surface, rippling outward into space. The Scourge vessels caught in its path contorted impossibly before imploding, crushed by forces beyond their technology to resist. Gravitational wave approaching, Merrick warned. Impact in 10 seconds. Brace for impact, Yamamoto called out. All hands, secure positions. The leading edge of the gravity wave struck the Perseverance like a physical blow. The ship bucked violently, structural integrity alarms blaring throughout all decks. Crew members were thrown from their stations despite restraints, and several consoles exploded in showers of sparks. For several agonizing seconds, it seemed the ship would tear itself apart. Then, the wave passed, leaving them tumbling through space with multiple systems offline. Damage report, Yamamoto called out, pulling herself back to her station. Hull breaches on all decks, Ortega reported, blood trickling from a cut on his temple. Life support critical. Engines offline. We're venting atmosphere in at least 12 sections. Survivors? Internal sensors are spotty, but I'm showing 31 life signs. We've lost at least 9 crew members. Yamamoto absorbed this grim news, then turned to the tactical display. And Aurora 7. Merrick worked his damaged console, trying to get sensor readings. The planet's still there, but changed. Massive tectonic disruption. Surface completely destabilized. No Scourge signatures detected in orbit or on the surface. They had succeeded, at terrible cost. Aurora 7 was lost, its surface rendered uninhabitable by the very weapon that had saved the evacuees. Director Santos and thousands of colonists were gone, along with Commander Ward and 9 Perseverance crew members. The civilian shuttles? Yamamoto asked. All accounted for, Merrick confirmed. They weathered the gravity wave better than we did. Smaller profiles. They're regrouping now, awaiting instructions. Yamamoto stared at the view screen, where the distant form of Aurora 7 had visibly changed. Its once rust-colored surface, now marred by massive fissures glowing with the planet's exposed molten core. Send a transmission to all shuttles, she said finally, and prepare a general broadcast on all human emergency frequencies. When the channel opened, Yamamoto spoke with the measured tone of someone who understood the historical significance of what had transpired. This is Lieutenant Kira Yamamoto of HMS Perseverance. Aurora 7 has fallen, but its people have struck a blow against the Scourge that will echo across the galaxy. They discovered something the enemy fears, a technology that could turn the tide of this war. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Commander Celine Ward gave her life to save 1,400 civilians from Aurora 7. Director Alara Santos and thousands of colonists sacrificed themselves to destroy an entire scourge fleet. Their actions prove what we've always known but perhaps forgotten, that even against overwhelming odds, humanity will persevere. Throughout human space, the message spread from ship to ship, colony to colony, carried by the surviving shuttles as they dispersed to protected worlds, bearing both refugees and hope. The Perseverance is damaged but operational. We will continue our mission to protect the survivors of Aurora 7 and to seek out the technologies Director Santos believed could help us fight back. This is not the end. This is where we begin to reclaim our future. In the weeks that followed, the message of Aurora 7 transformed the human resistance. What had been a desperate retreat became a coordinated strategy. The data recovered from the mining colony revealed patterns in scourge movements and potential weaknesses in their technology. More importantly, it provided coordinates to other worlds where similar artifacts might be found. The Perseverance itself limped to the nearest human outpost, where emergency repairs made it spaceworthy again, under Yamamoto's command, now promoted to commander. The ship became a symbol of resistance, its battle-scarred hull a testament to what could be accomplished even by a single vessel when all seemed lost. 3 months after Aurora 7, a small coalition fleet assembled around the Perseverance, ships from scattered colonies and hidden military outposts, drawn together by the story of one frigate that had stood against the scourge and survived. On the bridge of the Perseverance, now reinforced with a proper crew complement, Yamamoto stood before the viewscreen with Chief Ortega and Lieutenant Merrick at her side. "Navigation. Set course for the Helios cluster," she ordered. "Long-range scans indicate scourge activity around the third planet, exactly where Director Santos's data suggested we might find another artifact." "Course plotted, Commander," the navigation officer replied. "Fleet signals ready status." Yamamoto nodded, studying the tactical display where 15 vessels, a fraction of humanity's former might, but a fleet nonetheless, awaited her command. Each ship had its own story of loss and survival, but they had found common purpose in the wake of Aurora 7. "The scourge broke every fleet we sent against them," she said, echoing the words Commander Ward had spoken before their fateful mission. "Until one ship refused to fall. Now, we show them what happens when humanity fights back." She turned to the communications officer. "Signal the fleet. Operation Perseverance is a go." As the coalition ships aligned and accelerated toward their jump point, Yamamoto felt the weight of command and of legacy. Commander Ward's sacrifice, Director Santos's final act of defiance, the thousands lost at Aurora 7. Their actions had changed the equation, transforming a hopeless retreat into the beginning of resistance. One ship had made a stand. Now a fleet would carry that stand forward, into the heart of enemy territory, guided by the knowledge that humanity's greatest strength had never been in its technology or its numbers, but in its refusal to surrender even when victory seemed impossible. The Perseverance led the formation into FTL, vanishing in a flash of light, carrying with it the hope of worlds yet to be saved, and the memory of those who had given everything to make that hope possible.